When Emma moved to the city, the first thing she noticed was the noise. There were cars outside her window from early morning until late at night. People walked fast. Doors opened and closed. Phones rang. Buses stopped and started. Even the air felt busy. Emma had grown up in a quiet town in the north. There, the mornings were soft, and people greeted each other on the street. In the evening, the stores closed early, and the sky looked wide and calm. But now she was 24, and she had come to the city for a new job. She told herself that this was exciting. A new place. A new life. A fresh start. Still, when she sat alone in her small apartment at night, she often felt that the city was too large for her, and she was too small for it. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building on Willow Street. It had one bedroom, one small kitchen, and a narrow window that looked down at the road. The floor made soft sounds when she walked. The walls were thin. Sometimes she could hear the people next door talking, laughing, or washing dishes. Emma worked at a design company. Her office was modern and bright, with large windows and white desks. Her co-workers were polite, but everyone seemed busy all the time. They smiled, but they did not stay and talk. They ate lunch quickly. They left quickly. They were kind but far away. At first, Emma thought she only needed time. But after 3 weeks, she still felt like a guest in her own life. One Saturday morning, she decided to take a walk with no clear plan. The weather was cool, and the sky was pale blue. She turned left at the bakery, crossed a small bridge, and followed a quiet road lined with old trees. She had never walked that way before. At the end of the street, she saw a small building with green paint and 2 tall windows. Above the door was a wooden sign, Willow Street Library. Emma stopped. She had not expected to find a library there. It looked older than the other buildings nearby. The paint on the door was a little worn, and ivy climbed part way up the wall. In one of the windows, someone had placed a yellow teapot, 3 books, and a small vase with white flowers. It did not look like part of the city. It looked like a place that had been waiting quietly for many years. Emma opened the door and stepped inside. A little bell rang above her head. The room smelled like paper, wood, and tea. Books filled the walls from floor to ceiling. A long table stood near the center of the room, and 2 old lamps gave off a warm golden light. In one corner, there was a reading chair with a knitted blanket over the back. Near the window stood a small desk, and behind it sat an older man with gray hair and round glasses. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning," he said. "Welcome." Emma smiled back. "Good morning. First time here?" "Yes," she said. "I was just walking." "That is how many people find this place," the man said. "They are on their way somewhere else, and then suddenly they are here." Emma laughed softly. "That sounds right." The man stood up. "I'm Mr. Bell." "Emma." "It's nice to meet you, Emma." He spoke slowly, as if he was not in a hurry to reach the next minute. Emma looked around. "It's beautiful here." Mr. Bell seemed pleased. "Thank you. It is small, but it has a good heart." Emma liked that answer very much. She spent almost an hour there. She walked through the shelves. She touched old book covers. She sat by the window and opened a collection of short stories. The city outside still moved quickly, but inside the library, time felt softer. Before she left, Mr. Bell said, "You are welcome to come again." Emma nodded. "I think I will." And she did. The next Saturday, she returned. And the Saturday after that. Soon, Willow Street Library became part of her week. Sometimes she borrowed books. Sometimes she only sat and read. Sometimes she drank tea from a paper cup, while rain tapped quietly against the windows. Little by little, she noticed more things. A mother came every Tuesday with her little son, who always ran to the shelf with animal books. A young student in a red jacket sat at the same table every Thursday and made notes in a small black notebook. An old woman with silver earrings read poems in the corner near the lamp. There was also a girl of about 10 who came in after school and stayed until evening. She wore her hair in 2 braids and always carried too many pencils. Her name, Emma learned later, was Sophie. One rainy afternoon, Emma came in and found Sophie sitting on the floor beside a low shelf. A notebook lay open on her knees. She was staring at the page with a deep frown. Mr. Bell was stacking books at the front desk. Emma walked over. "Are you okay?" Sophie looked up. "I have to write a story for school." "That sounds interesting," Emma said. "It isn't," Sophie replied. "I don't know what to write." Emma sat down beside her. "What is the story about?" "That's the problem. It can be about anything." Emma smiled. "Anything can be hard." Sophie nodded very seriously. "Exactly." Emma thought for a moment. "What do you like?" Sophie looked down at her notebook. Clouds. Train stations. Lost things. Dogs. Cakes. Magic doors. And old women who know secrets. Emma laughed. "That already sounds like a story." Sophie blinked. "Really?" "Yes," Emma said. "Maybe a girl finds a lost dog at a train station. Then the dog takes her to a bakery. At the bakery, she meets an old woman who knows about a magic door." Sophie's eyes grew wide. "That's good. You can make it better," Emma said. For the next 20 minutes, they made up the beginning of a story together. Sophie wrote quickly. Her face changed completely. The frown disappeared. Her pencil moved with energy and joy. When she finally stood up, she said, "I think I like writing now." "That is a wonderful sentence," said Mr. Bell from the desk. Sophie grinned, packed her notebook, and ran to the door. After she left, Emma helped Mr. Bell put books back on the shelves. "You are good with children," he said. Emma shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe I just remember what it feels like to be confused." Mr. Bell smiled. "That is often enough." From then on, Emma began helping at the library now and then, not as a real worker, just as herself. She put books back in place. She wiped the table after tea. She helped carry a box of donations into the back room. She read to Sophie once when Sophie had a cold and said her head hurt too much to focus. And the strange thing was this: the more Emma gave her time to the library, the less lonely she felt in the city. Nothing in her job had changed. Her apartment was still small. The road outside was still loud. But now, once or twice a week, she entered a room where people slowed down, looked at each other, and listened. That changed something inside her. One evening, Mr. Bell asked, "Would you lock the front door for me?" "Of course," Emma said. He was standing on a small ladder, reaching toward the high shelf. She hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask you something?" "You already are," he said gently. Emma smiled. "How long have you worked here?" 32 years. Emma looked around in surprise. "That long?" "Yes. I came for 1 year and never left." "Why?" Mr. Bell climbed down carefully. "Because I thought I was managing books. But really, I was caring for a place where people could breathe." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think I understand that." "I thought you might," he replied. Winter came slowly. The trees on Willow Street lost their leaves. People wore darker coats. The air smelled like rain and cold stone. One Friday evening, Emma arrived at the library and found Mr. Bell sitting very still at the desk. He looked pale. "Are you all right?" she asked at once. He gave a small smile. "Just tired." Emma frowned. "You don't look only tired." He did not answer right away. Finally, he said, "The doctor says I should rest for a few weeks." Emma's heart sank. "A few weeks?" "Yes." She looked around the room, then back at him. "What will happen to the library?" Mr. Bell folded his hands. "It may need to close for a short time." The idea hurt more than Emma expected. Close? The room suddenly felt different, as if someone had dimmed a light. That night, she could not stop thinking about it. The library was not only a building with books. It was the first place in the city that had made her feel calm. It was the first place that had felt like hers. The next day, she returned. Mr. Bell was in the back room, sorting papers. Emma stood in the doorway and said, "I have an idea." He looked up over his glasses. "That sounds promising. What if the library doesn't close?" He waited. Emma took a breath. "What if I help run it for a while?" Mr. Bell said nothing for a few seconds. Then he slowly sat down. "That is a generous offer," he said. "I mean it," Emma replied. "I can come after work, and I can be here on weekends. Maybe some of the regular visitors can help too. Just for a few weeks." Mr. Bell looked at her with a long, thoughtful expression. "Emma," he said quietly, "running a library is more than opening the door." "I know," she answered. "But maybe opening the door is a very good start." For the first time that day, Mr. Bell laughed. In the end, they made a plan. For 3 weeks, the library would stay open on shorter hours. Emma would manage the desk in the evenings and on Saturdays. A student from the neighborhood would help on Wednesdays. Sophie's mother offered to water the plants and clean the windows once a week. The old woman with silver earrings said she would host a Friday poetry hour, so the place would not grow lonely. And somehow, it worked. The first evening, Emma sat behind the desk alone. She felt nervous. She checked the borrowed books twice. She arranged the pencils 3 times. She looked at the clock every few minutes. Then the bell above the door rang. A man came in with his daughter. "Is Mr. Bell here?" he asked. "He's resting," Emma said. "But the library is open." The little girl smiled and ran to the children's shelf. After that, more people came. A teenager looking for a history book. An older woman returning 2 novels. Sophie carrying a new notebook and speaking loudly before the door had fully closed. "You're really in charge now?" she asked. "Only for a little while," Emma replied. Sophie looked impressed. "That's still a lot." By the end of the evening, Emma was tired but happy. She locked the door, turned off the lamps, and stood for a moment in the quiet room. She had come to the city feeling like a stranger. Now she was holding the keys to a place that mattered. It did not feel small. It felt important. At the end of the 3rd week, Mr. Bell returned. He looked stronger, though still a little thin. When he entered, Sophie clapped. The student in the red jacket smiled. Even the woman with silver earrings stood up from her chair and said, "You took your time." Mr. Bell looked around the library with bright eyes. Then he turned to Emma. "You kept it alive," he said. Emma shook her head. "We all did." "Yes," he said. "But you began it." A few days later, he gave her a small wrapped package. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a brass key on a blue ribbon. She looked up. "What is this?" Mr. Bell smiled. "Your own key." Emma held it in her hand. "It means," he said, "that this place is yours too." She did not know what to say, so she simply said the truth. Thank you. Spring arrived at last. Small green leaves returned to the trees. The window was often open now, and soft air moved through the room. People stayed longer in the evening. Sometimes someone brought flowers. Sometimes someone left a cake on the table with a note that said, "For the library." One Saturday morning, Emma was arranging a display of short story books when her phone rang. It was her manager from work. "Emma," he said, "we are choosing someone for the new project team. It may mean longer hours, but it is a good chance for growth. Are you interested?" Emma looked around the library as he spoke. Sophie was reading by the window. Mr. Bell was helping a man find a gardening book. The lamps were off because the spring light was enough. For a moment, Emma saw two possible lives in front of her. One was faster, brighter, and more impressive on paper. The other was quieter, slower, and harder to explain. But she knew something now that she had not known before. A life did not become valuable only because it looked important from far away. Sometimes value lived in small rooms, in steady work, in familiar voices, in doors that stayed open. "Emma?" said her manager. She took a breath. "I'm grateful," she said. "But no, I don't think that path is right for me." There was a pause. "All right," he said. "Thank you for telling me honestly." When the call ended, Emma put her phone back in her pocket. Mr. Bell looked over from the desk. "A difficult choice?" "Yes," Emma said. "Do you regret it?" Emma looked toward the window. Outside, the city was still moving. Cars still passed. People still hurried. The noise had not gone away. But now, inside herself, there was a quieter place. "No," she said. "I don't." That evening, after the library closed, Emma stayed a little longer than usual. She put books back on the shelves. She straightened the chairs. She stood near the window and looked out at Willow Street under the soft blue light of early evening. When she had first come to the city, she thought she needed to become someone else in order to belong. More confident, more impressive, more certain. But maybe belonging did not begin that way. Maybe it began when you cared for something. Maybe it began when you returned to the same place often enough to leave part of yourself there. Maybe it began when a strange city slowly became full of familiar faces. Emma touched the brass key in her pocket and smiled. The city was still large. She was still learning it. But now, on Willow Street, there was a small library with green walls, warm lamps, and a door she could open herself. And for the first time since she had arrived, the city no longer felt like a place where she was only passing through. It felt quietly and truly like home.